So I've got this argument apparently between Jeremy Kyle and a Just Stop Oil activist. So we all saw the clip from, I think it was Good Morning Britain. Is that the Richard Madeley one, or is that, I forget what the name of the fucking show is. But either way, it was literally just like Don't Look Up, where it was a Just Stop Oil activist saying that they have to engage in direct action for people to listen because the government won't take climate change seriously. And he was like, "Oh, well, you've got a immature slogan, and people just want to get to work." And it was just an incredibly cringe interview that kind of went viral. So that clearly that kind of thing is still within the public conscious, at least to a reasonable degree. So Jeremy Kyle, notorious, working class bullier of working class people on his show, which may I remind everyone, got cancelled because the people killed themselves. Fun facts about the Jeremy Kyle show, which probably you all know by now. But even so, let us not forget this man seems to have his image rehabilitated despite the fact that his show bullied someone so hard they killed themselves. But nevertheless, I digress. I'm sure he's going to have some incredibly nuanced takes on the idea of oil divestment. But we shall see. Let's bring up this argument and this debate and see how it goes.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
How are you, my friend?
Jesus fucking Christ! I can't. Is that their actual slogan now? I mean, that's it. When you can't empirically ground any of your viewpoints anymore, all you can do is appeal to. It's just argumentum ad populum is just the place where they go to at the end of the day because they realise that well, if everyone believes it, then we can continue that narrative moving forward, right? Rather, maybe some things are more difficult or more complicated than what general members of the public think, or what an appeal to common sense might be. But nevertheless,
I'm doing all right.
No wonder the youth of today want to change anything when us old gits can't make anything work. Right, explain to me what Just Stop Oil is, please.
Just Stop Oil is demanding that the UK government stop investing in new fossil fuel licenses now, because last year the International Energy Agency said that if we're serious about the climate crisis, there can be no new investments in oil and gas.
Is it? Let's not talk about
happy you're right, Phoenix. How you doing?
the climate at the moment. Let's talk about the way that your organisation is doing.
My favourite Saint George, Georgy Malenko of the Russian Communist Party.
What it's doing. Treat me again as an idiot. This is a youth-led group, an
Okay, does not change behaviour at all.
Offshoot of Extinction Rebellion. When it's described as a youth-led offshoot, why is that? Is it because the younger generation is more interested in the climate, you're saying, than the older generation? Because cynics are saying, Alex, and I want to give you the opportunity to answer, that 14, 15... How old are you, 15?
I'm 16.
Younger people do care is one side. Other people are saying that younger people are being put up so, they can't be criticised for their actions.
What? Since when has that ever been the point of view? I think most people just think that it's young people getting involved because they're politically naive. That tends to be the kind of boomer line on this shit. I don't know what Alex is going to say, but clearly the answer is obvious, is in the people who are going to live longer, who are going to be alive to a later period, are going to be the people who are more likely to get affected by the adverse effects of climate change than a bunch of boomers who are going to die out in 20 years, right?
Yeah, well, we're doing this because we're really scared about the future, because, as the scientists are saying, we literally have no time left not to act. Like last year, Sir David King, the former chief scientific advisor to the UK government, said we have 3 to 4 years left to act, and the government are wasting this time. The government need to get a grip now and just stop new oil, because that's the first step to start to...
Good one, AJ, I like it. Explain it to me like I'm a boomer who thinks that when you close one window on the computer or open a new window of the computer, the previous one has gone forever.
to tackle the climate crisis.
So let's take the climate crisis, and let's say that you have a point. Let's just say, I know you're also protesting the UK's relationship with more polluting nations, China's use of fossil fuel, India's use of fossil fuels, the US's use of plastics. I get all of that, right? It's all very moral.
But China isn't even that polluting, right? I'm no fucking CCP stan or anything, but when you look per capita, the actual amount of greenhouse gas that gets expelled by China per capita, considering it's a nation of billions of people, right? It's really quite far down the list. It's highest in absolute volume. That's because it's the country with the biggest population in the world. So it's got the most amount of people to have to generate energy for. But they generate most electricity through hydroelectricity. I think that's the largest sector of electricity generation in China at the very least. So their actual level of pollutant, based upon pace per capita, is nowhere near as high as places like the United States.
It's all very great, and I'm old and you're young, and that's fantastic. Do you believe, my friend, that a way to get the British public, and I said this to Extinction Rebellion in a very calm way, do you honestly believe at 16 that the way to get people on side, to get them to listen to your concerns, to go with you in terms of what you're saying, is to blockade...
Hey, thank you for the resub. Let's get metaphysical. Explain it to me like the sort of person who automatically comes out with, well, what about China and India whenever US and UK? Why won't it let me scroll down? I can't see the rest of your comment. Whenever US and UK emissions are criticised, true. Oh, I absolutely 100% agree with Just Stop Oil's methods, right? Like, I was very critical. I mean, you saw my, I don't know if you saw my Normal Island segment about it, about the Insulate Britain protesters who did specifically go out of their way to inconvenience members of the public doing incredibly necessary things, right? So they were gluing themselves to the fucking road, and people were just trying to get to work, which, opposite, I mean, I agree with their idea of doing something of a large scale, right? Like, we're doing this all over the country in a way that's impossible to ignore. Understand why they did that, but you generate too much negative press. Like, there were genuine people on Twitter telling people to run these people over, which is crazy, right? They were making too many enemies and not enough, and getting for not enough exposure, right? Whereas Just Stop Oil, you know, chaining themselves to, you know, the goalposts at big football matches, they're only really, stopping people from watching some leather get kicked around for 10, 15 minutes before the game then restarts. It's not like what happened with Insulate Britain, where, you know, somebody missed some appointment to go to the hospital or whatever, and that could have caused complications or something like that, where, you know, the frivolity is much greater with what Just Stop Oil were getting involved with, right? It was only getting involved with like frivolous events, but they were still large ticket enough, still large, still kind of popular enough to be able to use it as a platform to gain mainstream attention. They're still getting on the talk shows, they're still getting on Talk TV, they're still getting on Good Morning Britain, or whatever the fucking Richard Madeley vehicle is. They're still getting on all of these programs, but they're not engendering as much antagonism from the general public because they're not interfering as directly in people's actual daily lives, right? So this is clearly the happy medium between peaceful protests that get ignored and, you know, disruptive protests that make everybody hate you, right? I think they've really got a good niche they've got going on there.
Fuel terminals, causing people to not be able to get petrol to put in their cars, to go to work, to drop their kids at school. Because I'm going to tell you this without sounding like an old fart, right? That's not the way you go about changing opinion. You do it with argument and debate. You don't do it with disrupting people's lives. Why?
I mean, we've been arguing and debating about climate change for 50 fucking years, Jezzo. Right? There's an environmentalist warning in a piece of Back to the Future spin-off series, like straight to TV spin-off shit in the fucking 80s, right? People knew, we've known for ages this has been an issue. We've been trying to patiently debate, and it's got literally fucking nowhere. Arguably worse, right? We're more polluting than we've ever been, and green initiatives just don't actually have as much traction anymore, really. I mean, they really don't have much traction. They will get lip service. Like, it's very clear that there's the willingness of people to engage, at least on like a superficial level, with the idea of things being more green. But obviously, there's the BP campaign, like the BP funded advertising campaign about personal carbon footprint. There's this fucking lip shit understanding where we've all got to chip in our own little if we all make individual changes, we'll solve the climate crisis, as if it's not something that needs to be changed from the top, using the power of the state to be able to regulate, you know, huge businesses that are the main reason why we have such incredibly high levels of consumption and incredibly high levels of climate damage that we have now, which is, again, we've been having this discussion for decades and decades and decades, and no government has taken it seriously, whether Conservative or Labour, or whether Democrat or Republican. These are the two countries I have the most political understanding of, and in neither of these countries has the climate change ever been taken seriously, ever. And the amount of emissions have continued to go up. The rate at which they've been going up, compared to like 90s, is lower, but they're still continuing to put through emissions. We're still seeing an increase in climate. We're still seeing an increase in the global level of atmospheric CO2. None of this shit is going down. Debate does not fucking work. It just has never. It just doesn't work. People don't want to listen, and so because people haven't listened, because people have been putting their fingers in their ears for 4-5 decades or whatever, drastic action has to be taken. Like, we're just gonna have to start Robloxing oil refineries. Like, what do we do? Literally, what do we do?
Why are you disrupting people's lives and hoping that that will change their minds? Because there's cynicism because of that. Do you understand that?
Nothing else has worked, Jeremy.
Yeah.
For 30 years, people have been trying to do that, and it hasn't got anywhere. We're still going down the route of climate collapse. We're still investing in new oil. The government, we need to go down this route because civil resistance works. And we need to get it. The government needs to get a grip on this because we don't like causing disruption and we don't like doing this. But because we're being forced into this, because the government continuously doesn't care about our futures, doesn't care about the people of this country who are dying in fuel poverty, doesn't care about the fact that we have a war in Ukraine and that's fueled by oil, a war in Yemen that's fueled by oil.
Big fact. This guy's 16. He's so eloquent. He's getting across the point so well. I'm proud. Alex Goff, you have made this elder millennial proud.
How do you get involved in something like this at 16? I want to respect you for coming on and having your say. I don't want to be seen to be criticizing you. I mean, it frustrates me that that you're doing what you're doing. I get. I mean, what difference do you think we can make on a serious note when China and India will carry on as before? Why is it all about the UK? Why are you not arguing with other people?
Because my government is the UK government and the UK is a geopolitical leader, the UK can lead on this and get out of fossil fuels, and then other countries will follow because that's how it works. Last year, Shell made £14 billion of profit out of oil and gas, and it's ridiculous. Whilst people continue to suffer in the UK, people continue to die of fuel poverty. The government needs to get a grip now because it's so serious, and that's why I'm doing it. That's why I got involved, because I'm terrified of my future. I'm terrified. Like, I go to school and I'm doing my GCSEs right now, and every day it's like, well, maybe I won't have that future that
what do you
supposedly promised.
What do your parents say?
My parents.
It's interesting. You can see like the gears turning in Kyle's mind here, saying like, how can I try and vilify this person? How can I change things around to vilify? You can see that pivot there as well. It was like, well, why are you targeting our government when you could be targeting another country's government? It's like, well, we can target both, and he's already mentioned India and China already in his already in this particular fucking segment, right? It's like, well, yeah, just because India and China, India are doing badly, China not so much. You can't actually move that round to the issue, which is that, well, if just because they're doing it badly doesn't mean the UK can't do it better. And he's correct in saying we are a world leader. I mean, at time of recording, we are a world leader, so we should be setting a good example, as should the biggest polluter in the world, the United fucking States.
Started to understand why I'm doing this, yeah, but
what are they doing?
And it's crazy how even with the amount of like manufacturing, the amount of like Western manufacturing that gets outsourced through colonial methods to India, to China, to Bangladesh, to Indonesia, right? The amount of our manufacturing base that has been outsourced to there, which is where a huge amounts of this electricity and energy consumption and additional CO2 expenditure is gonna come from. Right? That's happened already, and then we're still the biggest polluters in the in the UK and the US. We're still the biggest polluters in the world, despite the fact that we've outsourced a bunch of manufacturing to these places too, and we're the places that are engaging in the consumption, right? We're the imperial core. We're where all of this, the expendable income as members of the global labor aristocracy, right? We are the ones who have the consumptive power that's generating the demand, or the overall demands, to be able to warrant the amount of manufacturing that's going on in these countries in the global south. So even in those countries, even in places like China and India, as you quite rightly quite rightly assert their Amity Island, is that China and India have to be able to engage with that to be able to fulfill our consumptive needs. Less so India, like a lot of India has high levels of consumption as well, but it's the imperialist pipeline is a big cause of a lot of third world energy generation and energy usage, right? Whereas you look at the internal consumption of, say, somewhere like Australia, where, they have incredibly low CO2 emissions. First of all, because huge amounts of electricity is generated by hydroelectricity, right? Like hydro has the the public body that deals with hydroelectricity in Tasmania generates so much electricity that the overall Liberal government in Australia forces Hydrotas to sell cheap energy to the mainland because they have such a surplus and they generate so much. It's quite funny.
For a living.
Absolutely. My dad's an architect, but this isn't the point, Jeremy. This isn't the point. The point is my future,
You fucking get him, Alex. You get him good.
my generation's future, and millions of people are
Are
dying
they
right
proud
now
of you?
because
Are they
this.
are they proud of the fact that you're sticking your head above the parapet? That's why I was asking. Are they proud of the fact that their son believes strongly in what he believes in enough to do this? Because I can't. I'm not actually against what you're arguing about. I don't like the way. No, it's not that I don't like the way you're doing it.
So why don't you get involved? Why
Because
don't
the
you
way you're
support
doing
it?
it, because the way you're doing it will not affect change. Because I'm not. It's very difficult, isn't it, to have a conversation? Because you'll think I'm talking down to you. I'm being straight. If you want people in this country to respect you, you don't stop them going about their daily lives. I used to say this to Extinction Rebellion. You're not cool if you stick yourself to a.
Then Jeremy, why is you or your platform that you're on, but you know full well. I mean, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's even more stupid than I think he is. He doesn't realise that there's a narrative being spun by Talk Radio and Talk TV. No, he doesn't realise that. Because I mean, obviously, there's the Chomsky Marr interview where Marr says, "Well, do you think we're self-censoring?" And Chomsky goes, "Well, no. Like, I believe you fully are cognizant of all of the things that you believe and you feel like you're speaking truth to power, but if you didn't believe the things that you did, you wouldn't be sitting in that chair right now." Right? We've seen a big shift in the overall tone of the climate debate, where it used to be the right were climate deniers and the left were, who cared about climate change. That's shifted now. Like, the rhetoric's shifted, where it used to be that way around, and now it's the left wants climate action, and the right thinks that it's too late for climate action, or you demonise the people involved in climate action so that it looks bad, rather than engaging with the climate argument, because that argument's kind of already been won. So they've just kind of pulled it back. They've taken a step back and said, well, we can't win on this battleground, so let's place the barrier here, where the barrier is what's acceptable, or what can be done, or what is, the reasonable middle ground about how you should engage in the climate debate. Because clearly we understand that clearly we understand that radical change is needed, but that's what's being opposed by the people who are the big money, who are in charge of places like Talk TV and Talk Radio, the kind of people who employ Jeremy Kyle, right? I really do hope that he understands, like, the overall narrative that's being made on this particular platform, because there's fucking. If you look at these channels, there's like a litany of like anti-net zero or whatever, or like anti climate change issue discussions that they have within their programming, right? It's very clear they want people to be skeptical about the climate change narrative moving forward, or the ways in which that we should combat climate change moving forward, because the owners of these channels have a vested interest in that continuing over time, right? But if Jeremy Kyle really does care about the environment, which he purports to with the things that he said in this interview, why isn't the chairman of BP? Why isn't a chairman of Shell? Why isn't people who run the people from EDF, or some kind of people who run the oil and coal companies who perpetuate the issues that we have to deal with at the moment with regards to climate change? Why are none of them on his show being demonized by him for the things that they are doing to the planet that he purports to care about here? And the reason is because his audience don't want to hear it, and the people who he employs don't want to hear it. And I think deep down, Kyle doesn't really want to hear it, because admitting it would admitting that he's lost, and then he wouldn't have his own little fucking his own little soapbox with which to be able to pontificate from, right? But acting like Alex, being disrespectful, just addressing Carl's arguments, it's really strange. I mean, it's incredibly frustrating, because you hear this a lot now. As I said, now the narrative has changed. Right-wingers they'll say they care about it, but they want common sense, quote-unquote, solutions, which aren't real solutions, right? But what is dictated by common sense, dictated by the idea of calling something common sense, is, again, it's just argumentum ad populum. It's just, who do we believe is in the point at which we can get away with doing as little as possible, right?
Goalpost, or to a radio mic or something like that. You can say to me, but that really gets people to sit up and take notice. No, it annoys people. What you need, this is what I'm trying to say to you, right, is you want the support of the British public. If you've got the support of the British public, you can achieve anything. So I put this to you earlier, and I don't really know whether you answered it or we got lost, but your organisation has been criticised for putting up younger people. Is it because, as I said, that you are leading the way, or is this a way for your organisation to get away from being criticised? Because it's harder nowadays to criticise younger people. What would you say?
What? It's harder to criticize. I mean, like, it probably is harder to criticize young people actually, but still too easy as far as I'm concerned. Young people's concerns have always historically been something that is easy to hand wave away. You don't have to care about young people. You've never had to care about young people. Suddenly there is like kind of a little kind of wisp, kind of an ephemeral barrier of, protection that young people's ideas get, that the liberal commentariat have enjoyed for fucking decades, right? They've never had any of their opinions challenged, the liberal commentators of this fucking world. Especially not when it comes to the way they treat young people. That's slowly being broken down. But obviously Kyle is like, well, I can't spend my entire life demonizing them, so that must mean you can't criticize young people anymore. And, like, that's so fucking cynical. And again, he's just trying to create a narrative here that shifts away from the actual issue, which is fucking, the existential threat that is climate change.
There are many young people involved in this movement, people of all ages, but it is led by young people. Because it's our future at stake here. And if the government doesn't act, and the point about these like tactics is because the government doesn't respond to normal conversation. The government only responds when it pinches, when it's disrupting business as usual, because the government doesn't care about other things. People have been trying to make them care through conversation, through reasonable discussion, and they still don't come to the table. They still don't start to act. They still don't stop new oil, which is basically a no-brainer step that 99% of scientists are saying has to happen now if we want a future.
Do you believe, Alex, do you believe you and your friends will effect change?
I think it's very possible, and I think that there's been much precedent for it happening. Ordinary people are coming together to make change, and hopefully it will happen. Otherwise, we literally have no future. And that's why I implore.
And Alex's really good point here was shifting the blame to the government, right? Explicitly saying, like, we do not want to do this. This is not a thing that we want to do, right? But we are forced into doing it because of the inaction of the government. We literally have no other choice because all other options have been exhausted. So if you want to blame anybody, for the disruption that's happened, blame the government, and also, blame huge polluting corporations as well.
Everyone to come and get involved in this movement, because
Can I tell you?
Our future's literally on the stake.
Can I say to you? I've given you airtime. Can I say something to you that matters to me? Right? I do believe that you believe in what you're saying, but I do believe that with anything you need to get the support. And what I'm not going to say what you have to understand. Try and accept this, right? I'll tell you why people aren't happy with Just Stop Oil, shall I? Because people can't afford, right? This is it, okay? You're 16. People cannot afford to heat their houses. So when you lot are pontificating about more expensive fuel options, however good that is for the climate, and I said this repeatedly on this show.
This isn't...
No, mate, but you're not paying the heating bill. Please hear.
You could just have fucking government subsidy. Oh god, you're not paying the heating bill. I mean, does Kyle think that Alex doesn't empathise with his own fucking parents about how they get to be able to pay the heating bills at the end of the day? Fucking hell. God, it's infuriating to me. And I was like, there are other ways in which we could deal with this crisis with regards to climate crisis, and also deal with how expensive it is to heat people's homes at the moment. These are things that we could deal with in multiple different ways. And even then, they're talking about new oil is what they're trying to stop, not gas, which is what we use to heat our fucking homes.
Hear me out 1 second. I've heard you out, right? When you are talking in your world, which is probably right, about more expensive fuel options, you are not going to please the majority of people. You might feel it's a conversation you have to have, and it might well be that you're right to have it. But what you need is the British public support. That's all I'm saying. Alex Gough, thank you so much indeed.
Good talk.
They couldn't even give him the final fucking word. They cut him off as he was trying to fucking respond. God, that's such a Vorsh move. But I think, he had a really good showing there. Of trying to get his point of view across, and it's just frustrating that, again, Kyle just continually feeds into whatever narrative that he wants to push from this interaction. Because if you shift the blame from, the people who are actually causing climate change to people who are protesting that being the bad guys, saying, you need to get people on side, which get people on side means not engaging in the direct action anymore. Getting people on side means ignoring the issue completely. And you say, well, that's what's going to happen. If we ignore it and we go back to the the debate table where clearly no action ever gets taken, that's what's going to happen. I'm sorry. again, the framing here from Jeremy for the entire interview is just, you're not allowed to inconvenience people, no matter the consequences. Does not matter what end consequences there are. If you inconvenience people, it's bad. So that's for step one. I was like, well, we'll all be fucking inconvenienced when we're living when we're able to crack eggs and on the asphalt on the streets, right? British public can't even be asked to support their own economic interests. They're not going to suddenly start caring about a future problem. Just like have conversation with people. Yeah, exactly, Phoenix. You're 100% correct. But yeah, that was tough to watch. But yeah, props to Alex there. Alex did a really good job of putting his issues across. But I really want to see people like this call out that narrative that's being pushed here and explicitly call Kyle out when they're on these programs. So it would be interesting, but nevertheless, a really good showing there from this Just Stop Oil activist. And I think that's what's frustrating, is that a lot of these people are incredibly well knowledgeable about the things that they talk about. Yet the people who bring them on their shows, like Madeley, like Kyle, like Mike Graham or whatever, they know that if they actually have an honest conversation about the issues, they'll fucking lose. So everything has to be twisted about whether it's expanding concrete or, you know, the optics of what people are doing, or whether or not the Just Stop Oil slogan is immature. Like, these conversations have to be derailed and obfuscated for these people to be able to platform these activists, because otherwise they will win the conversation in these particular ones, because they're so well informed about the issues that they care about. I mean, as they would do, they're a pressure group. But yeah, good showing there. I definitely enjoyed Alex, and I hope he moves on to bigger and brighter things with regards to his campaign. And also, future YouTube viewers, I hope you engage in really bright things in the future by clicking the subscribe and clicking the like button, both on the stream and on this video, if and when I upload it later. And also ring the bell, it'll notify you when I go live. And I'll catch you on the next YouTube video, future YouTube viewers.